Peace. What's up, everybody? What's going on? I wanted to take a minute to give y'all a video. I really thought about the fact I've never given y'all like my backstory, like how I ended up on this path, on this journey. Maybe I've given it to you if we've spoken individually, but I feel like it's time for me to do an actual video where I get intimate with my listeners and really kind of give y'all my backstory. So, what better time than now, because I am trying to be more diligent in my videos and in being consistent with the videos. So there's been a constant struggle for me because y'all know I got 4 kids. If you don't know, I got 4 kids, so they get first priority always. But anyway, so just a little bit about me, right? So if you don't know, my name is Rakia. Some people call me Queen Raw. Some people call me Queen. Some people call me Raw. I'm currently 34 years old, married with 4 kids, living in the Atlanta metro area. I've been here in this area since 2009. I moved here in 2009 to attend Life University. So let me go back and let me give y'all all the gist of it. So I grew up in eastern North Carolina, pretty rural area, the 252 area, pretty much in the Tarboro, Rocky Mount, Edgecombe County area. So if you're familiar with that, that's where I'm from. The 252, we call it the bucket. And growing up, my grandmother is a minister. She's an evangelist. She still is currently. So growing up, I've always grown up in the church. Going to church consistently, Christian, missionary, Baptist Christian family. So I've always been an avid Bible reader. We had to go to Bible study, Bible school, vacation Bible school, Sunday school. You know the way Steve Harvey said you had to go to church all the time. That's how I grew up. So we always went to church. So I've always been very fluent with my Bible. I've always, been into that. So as a little kid, I was always a child that sought out happiness for some odd reason as a young child. And one of the first places I looked for that was in the church, because a lot of people, a lot of our people, that was their resolve, that was their comfort place, that was, where that was just what we knew, right? So as a young child, I looked to the church for that. And as I got a little older, teen years, I started to ask a little bit more questions. I had more questions, and at that particular time, I learned that you don't really ask those questions, at least not in that time, because mind you, like I said, I'm 34. So in my teen years, it's not like how it is today. These young people have access to the world with their phones. We didn't grow up like that. We was just coming into the internet. We grew up with the internet being introduced to us. We didn't grow up with it. So I learned pretty early on that you don't really ask certain questions. There's some things you just don't ask. And a lot of people will understand what it is that I'm saying. And whether you grew up Christian, Muslim or whatever, you don't really question tradition. So when I turned 18, well, actually when I graduated high school at 17, I went to Elizabeth City State University. And it was when I got my first little introduction to knowledge a little bit. I had a cousin who drove me up there to take me back one time. And we had an unforgettable conversation. And it was the first time I was ever introduced to really a different form of thinking. Like somebody who actually questioned the traditions, questions the way that we grew up. So that was very different for me. And that one conversation kind of trickled. You know, it was like a domino effect. So, and I think that first conversation is what really kept me from taking that Greek sorority route. You know what I mean? Because growing up, I was really I was always a smart kid. I was always in the smarter, you know, I was always smarter than other people. So I was always advanced in that way. And just being smart, getting good grades, but I never really liked anything in school. I could just pass everything. I could just do good at everything. I was smart. I mean, what can I say? So I never really had a liking for a lot of those things. So I didn't know what I wanted to do coming out of high school. I didn't really know. So the direction that I took was health. It was science. It was the body. I really wanted to study the body because growing up, I consider myself to be a sickly child. I used to get weird sicknesses, and I never really got a cause behind what was causing my sicknesses a lot of times. You know, it was always a lot of going, a lot of treatments, but it was never a root into why. And so when I got into biology, I started to study physiology. So I got my degree, my bachelor's degree in biology with a minor in chemistry. I went on to chiropractic school at Life University in Marietta, Georgia, which is how I ended up here in Georgia, in Marietta. So that's how I got here. 2009, I got accepted into Life University into their chiropractic program. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew coming out of school that just having a biology degree wasn't going to be enough. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had this opportunity, so I took it. And even though, let's see, I was in that program, that chiropractic program for 3 years until I decided that I didn't want to be in it anymore. And the reason that I knew I didn't want to be in it because I really feel like I came to Life University to be initiated. What I mean is, even though I came for school, I was introduced to a whole new world. See, where I grew up at is rural area, so everybody there is the same. It's very little diversity, if any. So I go to school with all the same type of people that believe in all the same types of things. Everybody is pretty much from the same place, just no diversity. So when I get to Life University, I meet people from all walks of life, from all different types of cultures, from other countries, from all types of upbringings. And I'm immersed in this whole Atlanta area where this, you know, black excellence is. So I'm in a whole new place. Because where I grow up at, you pretty much know your place. You feel what I'm saying? Like it's a rural country area with not a lot of diversity. So it can feel like there is only certain places for you when you look a certain way, if you get where I'm coming from. And I'm going to just leave it at that. So what I realized is I got here because of my own body. So when I was in high school, I used to play ball. I was really good at ball. Everybody wanted me to play basketball, like on a higher level, but I never really wanted to do that, ever. I never really wanted to do that. But I was good. And I can honestly say, looking back at my youth, I really didn't have a lot of direction for myself. I wasn't very self-aware. I wasn't self-centered at all. I was just doing whatever I thought was going to get me, quote unquote, a successful life, you know, or a certain type of acceptance. I never really explored myself until I started to live on my own, until I got out away on my own because I no longer had the influences of my family of my environment, everything was different. So at that particular point in my life, I was able to really figure out who I was and what I really wanted to do. And so the reason why I say that a lot of this came out of my body is because I was so sick as a child, and nobody could ever tell me why I'm getting sick in this way. What does this mean? And I'm a smart person. I study the body. I understand physiology, the nervous system, and certain things like that. And I just realized something is not right here. And when I got to life, that alternative medicine, that alternative help was the gateway. It was like the door, the floodgates open up, because then that's when I got introduced into energy work, or into your energy body, different ways of looking at nutrition. It was just totally, totally different. And somehow or another, those questions that I used to ask in my youth, that I was taught that you're not supposed to ask, I started to ask those questions again, to the point where I wanted more answers. And I started to seek out those answers. And being in an environment that wasn't controlled by my past, by my traditions, or anything like that, I was completely free to explore and to adventure. And I never realized how much of an adventurer I was until I started to adventure information. See, people don't realize how far you can take your mind by just reading books. They say travel and things like that can really, teach you in a higher level. So when you can't travel, you got to travel through books. You can jump through time reading certain books, studying different forms of history, especially when you're learning what's not taught to you. Especially when you're learning outside of what you're indoctrinated into. Because we got to remember that we're institutionalized. We are taught certain facts and things without ever questioning them, without ever asking, okay, where did this come from? Why do we think this, or how do we know that? And once you start to do that, when you develop that type of mind, nothing is ever the same again. It's like a rubber band. You know how they say a rubber band stretch, even though it can the elasticity, it can shrink back. It'll never go back to how it originally was. And that's how your mind is. So once you introduce your mind to certain information, there is no going back. It's really like the Matrix. It's really like some red pill, blue pill. When you take that pill, it is no going back, because you can't unsee what you're saying. So when they say ignorance is bliss, ignorance is very much bliss, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. There's never any going back. You can't progress up to the 12th grade and think you're going to go back to kindergarten. It don't work like that. And so once I started, I couldn't stop. I had to keep going. And I realized, and I think a lot of people do stop and they do go back. And I think it's because we are embarking on different adventures within ourselves. And it's not always easy to face yourself. So, but back to the story, right? So back to everything. So this was 2009 when we moved to Georgia. It was June 2009. And I would say by December 2009, man, I had occult books. It was just different. It was just different. And by me going to school, being in a program like that, even though it was very intense, and I think this is probably why I did not finish that program, aside from just my own inner realization that this isn't what I'm here for. I was supposed to come here, but this isn't what I'm here for. So once I accepted that truth, I was able to move on. But I know because I was in school, it allowed me the freedom to be able to explore that. Even though, like I said, that program was intense and the schedule, was a lot at times, the way that it provided me the freedom to venture into that information is worth every bit of debt I got into. And I got into a lot of debt. You know what I'm saying? Going to school, college ain't cheap, especially not no professional program, not no chiropractic at Life University. It's not cheap. So what I ended up doing, I was like, okay, so I don't want to just have acquired this debt. So I switched over to the master's program and finished up my master's in sports health science and nutrition. And I just kept going from there. So I ended up graduating in 2014. So I finished school 2014. That was when I had my I had my second daughter in 2014 in April. And I think I graduated in June. And from there, after I got my master's, I went on, both me and my husband got certified as holistic alternative psychology practitioners. So I've been studying occult, spiritual awareness, knowledge, information since 2009, and it's 2022. So when people, so I'm at, I can look at a lot of people and I can see where they are, and I can remember when I was at a place very similar, but I'm not there anymore. So a lot of things that I've said over the years, because y'all have seen me. If you've been on my Facebook, my Twitter, Instagram, you've seen me throughout the course of these years, meet a lot of these lecturers, go through miles of information, share miles of information pertaining to all the different schools of thoughts, whether it was some more. It don't matter, man. I've been through all of it, and I'm still going through all of it. Because one thing that I've learned on this journey is it really doesn't stop. It really doesn't stop. Like, it's never ending. It's the never ending story, because we talking about your soul anyway. But I've wanted to do a video where I gave y'all my backstory, somewhat to some degree. Of course, I'm going to touch on this more and give y'all a lot of my personal experiences as I share information anyway. But I felt it was right that I did this part and give you a condensed version of my story. I remember, so I started looking into this. It was 2009. I think we had been in Georgia like 2 months. And I remember telling my husband, I was like, babe, I don't know if Christianity is really the way. I never forget when I told him this. And he was like, he looked at me like, what? Like, you serious? But one thing about him, though, he listened to me. He heard me out. And I think that's where a lot of people rift it. Because people wake up and they share what they become aware of with those closest to them, and they get shut down, and those relationships dwindle and tarnish. And I've had a lot of relationships that have had that effect, between certain people. We just not as close no more. It's maybe not any love lost, maybe it is some, but it's just not the same. And I mean, on my part, I know it's no love lost, but for a long time, I dealt with a lot of anger. And I see a lot of people on the path, and that's where they at. I dealt with a lot of anger because I was mad. I was mad that I was lied to. I was mad about everything. I was mad that everything was a lie. And I had to work through that anger. But everybody doesn't work through it. Everybody doesn't get past it. Everybody doesn't get through it. So even as you embark on, quote unquote, this self-awareness journey, you're going to lose some people that's on the journey too. You're going to leave some of them behind too. It's just a part of it. It just come with the territory. You know what I'm saying? You just got to accept it for what it is. So, but yeah, ultimately, man, it was my body. Because like I said, I dealt with a lot of sickness, right? And as a Virgo, dealing with a lot of Virgo energy, especially with a Mars in Virgo in my 6th house, I dealt with a lot of sickness. And and it would be weird. Like, I would have a lot of kidney type of problems, a lot of issues with my kidneys. And so when I went to chiropractic school, by the time I was up to get into clinic, I almost was at clinic, where that's where you're pretty much performing as a doctor, as a student doctor, right before I left out of the program. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Please don't sleep on no chiropractic programs, okay? Because I've cut on cadavers. I've literally had to learn every nerve in the whole cervical plexus, all the muscles. We had to name all this in the body. You got to know what them nerves and everything is. It's intense. It's intense. Don't ever sleep on chiropractic school, yo. The actual schooling is probably more intense than medical school on some for real, for real. Now, I'm not saying that it's more difficult because, medical school students, they got to go be a resident. But when you in that classroom, that curriculum, it's just as intense. Just as intense. So in chiropractic school, so going to clinic and everything, and even having a student doctor myself, with x-rays and everything, I was able to observe my body in not just in a way of trying to, find out about my body is in wellness as in a doctor patient, but also in an educational way. So I was able to look at my own x-rays and see things about my own body. Because mind you, I'm taking x-ray classes. I got to identify this in the x-rays myself. So what I learned about my body was in your spine, right? You got 7 cervical and there's 12 thoracics. Okay? So, but I don't have 12 thoracics. I don't have 12. So I have 11. And that 11 and 12 thoracic vertebrae has a lot to do with the nerves that go to your kidneys, your bladder, adrenal, that particular part of your body. And I got into studying the meridians, I got into studying the chakras. I got into studying all of that to really understand how my body was functioning and what was causing my body to do the things that it was doing. And I actually met a chiropractic doctor, a white dude by the name of Dr. Rob, most phenomenal doctor I've ever met in my life. Helped me in ways that I can never explain. And he dealt with Eastern medicine. Even though he was a chiropractor, he dealt with a lot of Eastern homeopathic medicine. Changed my life, man. Changed my life. I still fuck with Dr. Rob to this day. Absolutely. I still deal with him to this day, because he deals with medicine in the body in a different way, in a way that I can relate to, because he learned from over there in the East. And it was a lot of that got me into understanding energy, understanding the power of your mind, understanding your energy body, your spiritual body. You have an aura, all these things. And everything just trickled down. And I realized that, wow, all of this is connected. Astrology, numerology, everything is really just talking about you. If you can work on you, if you can balance out your own energy body, you can heal yourself. This was the realization that I had. This is what woke me up. It all was pertaining to what was going on in my body. And so, growing up, being a avid person who was questioning a lot of things, this made me question everything. So I'm like, damn, if they've been lying to us about this, they had to have been lying to us about some other things. And when you find out the lies are everywhere, it's a wrap. You're never going back to the way you were. You're never gonna go back. You will not go back. You can't shut your eyes to it. It's forever change. So I understand sometimes when people seem oblivious, when they don't want to know, because we have this habit of waking up and wanting to wake other people up. And we can't do that. We can plant seeds, we can maybe spark the thought or spark some things in these individuals, but you can't wake them up. You can't do it. It's only for them to do, so that's how I got on this journey, man. That's how I ended up dealing in the occult, because I realized all the answers that I was seeking was what was hidden. I don't know about nobody else, but everything that I needed was everything that was hidden away. Everything they said, well, you can't know nothing about this. You don't need to ask questions about that. Just do this right here and don't pay no attention to that. Everything they said don't pay no attention to is what helped me, is what saved me. And for years and years and years, that's all I talked about. That's all I screamed about. That's all I wanted to tell everybody. I just wanted to tell everybody how this saved me, how this did this and did that. And then I realized, damn, I'm just like the other people. I'm just like the religious people. You know what? Let me let people live. And so that's where I'm at now. I'm at the place where, hey man, if you like it, I love it. You let the dead lay with the dead. Ain't nothing I can do. The Bible say do not cast pearls into swine. See, I'm also into a place where I can just take wisdom for what it is. And I don't have to be upset about where it came from, about, none of that. I've done that healing. A lot of people haven't done that healing, So, let me wrap this up. Because it's longer than I want it to be. But I just wanted to do this little video. For one, I'm trying to just be more comfortable just doing videos anyway. And two, it was just necessary for me to provide my story so y'all can know how I got here, why I'm here, and what I'm doing while I'm here. You got to be clear. You got to know what you're doing while you're here, man. If not, you just letting life happen. You're not taking no control over your life. So, I wanted to do that. I wanted to go ahead and get this video out, get it off my chest or whatever, and kind of put it out there. So, subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed to the channel. Turn your notifications on so you can know when I post. I plan to post more. I plan to go live more. I do need a little encouragement though. So whatever y'all like from me, let me know so I can provide more of that content. And I'm going to wrap this thing up. Peace.